We are pioneers and trailblazers. We fight for freedom. We transform our dreams into the truth. Our struggles will become a nation.
Hi, thank you for watching History Today with Cassidy. I'm your host, Cassidy, and tonight the episode will be bringing in different experts and historians, talking about the different perspectives of World War II. Now introducing our first guest, historian Hannah Evans, giving us basic background on World War II. So to jump right in, how about you give us some information on how the war started?
One of the most significant causes of the war was actually the leaders who had decided to try and overrule the nation. Many of them are fairly well known. First we have Adolf Hitler, who had taken advantage of Germany after the First World War and had the idea to switch into a world-dominating country. About 2 weeks later, the Soviet Union, led by Stalin, had invaded Poland from the west side because those two leaders had agreed on a pact, which was called the German-Soviet Union Pact, Non-Aggression Pact. And as France was slowly collapsing, Benito Mussolini, which was the leader of Italy, had declared war. These dictators had very similar leadership techniques. Totalitarianism mostly consisted of having total control over every aspect.
Thank you, Hannah, for all that insightful information. So how did the U.S. get involved?
The U.S. was neutral for the first 2 years of war, but on December 7th of 1941, Japan had attacked Hawaii. This had forced the U.S. to join in order to protect their own country. So 3 days after the U.S. had joined, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., marking America's start into World War II.
Alright folks, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, but we'll be back with more information on World War II.
Here at World Bank, we have two goals: to end extreme poverty and promote shared prosperity in a sustainable way. We are one of the world's largest sources of funding and knowledge for developing countries. With 189 member countries, staff from more than 170 countries, and offices in over 130 locations, the World Bank Group is a unique global partnership. 5 institutions working for sustainable solutions that reduce poverty and build shared prosperity in developing countries. If you would like to help us in our efforts of international development, there are many different ways you can join. For job seekers, we offer various jobs, programs, and internships. Visit our website, www.worldbank.com, for more information or ways to contact us.
Welcome back! So before the break, Hannah was giving us some information on the causes of World War II. So you were mentioning all this destruction, and I'm just wondering, how much did it cost?
You're right, this war was extremely harsh on the economy. In fact, the total cost of the war to the federal government between 1941 and about 1945 was about $321 billion. That was roughly 10 times more than the cost of World War I. After the billions of dollars had been spent, the 1942 Revenue Act had been created. This act would increase income and corporate tax rates. The top rate had increased from about 31% to 40%. This is what started the tax collection system devised by Congress that would withhold a certain amount of money from paychecks that was sent straight to the government.
Thank you so much for coming on our show. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here.
Of course, glad I could make it.
Big round of applause for Hannah Evans.
Welcome to V's Corners. Today's topic is about whether or not the U.S. was justified when bombing Japanese and German cities at night during World War II. First off, let's get some background information. In Japan, after one of the largest fire bombings in central Tokyo, it killed over 100,000 people and that left hundreds of thousands more homeless. In a larger perspective, from January 1944 until August 1945, the U.S. dropped 157,000 tons of bombs on Japanese cities, according to the U.S. Strategic Bomb Survey. On to Germany. In World War II, approximately 410,000 German civilians were killed by Allies. From July 1944 to 1945, an average of 13,536 people were killed every month. Based off all of this information, I would agree to say that the Allies were not justified in conducting nighttime bombings of German and Japanese cities. They killed too many innocent lives and left a lot of people homeless when they didn't have to. There definitely were other ways that people could have made moves during World War II, and I don't think that the Allies were justified at all when it came to bombing these innocent lives and killing innocent people. That's it for V's Corner. I hope that next week we'll have an interesting topic as well, and I hope to see you then.
During World War II, the German Nazi regime and their leader, Adolf Hitler, began the mass murder of Jewish people, also known as the Holocaust. Millions of people were sent to concentration camps, where many of them were killed. The living conditions there were truly atrocious. In fact, here's an interview clip with one of the survivors.
My father was forced to work repairing the electrified fences. My mother made iron plates that went under the military boots. I, miraculously, was given the chance to work in the agriculture department. The food ration that you received was a single loaf of bread, a watery cabbage soup, intentionally non-nutritional. That was your total food for the week. The sidewalk would be littered by the corpses of those that had passed away the night before. They shaved our hair, they pushed us through an archway and doused us with a painful liquid. We were washed for about 10 seconds, and I'm pushed against a large building with a huge smokestack and an enormous flame and a most obnoxious odor that we could not recognize.
As you can tell, life in the concentration camps was difficult. Jobs were physically draining, rooms were extremely overcrowded, and thousands died of starvation and disease. This was extremely unfortunate, but a crucial piece of history.
Now introducing our second guest of the night, Lacey Williams, an expert on aircrafts in World War II. So, I'm sure you know a lot about a group that fought in the war called the Tuskegee Airmen. Can you explain to our audience what role they played in the war?
Great question, Cassidy. This group was formed because many African American men were inspired by pilots around the world and wanted to fly in the war. Although racism was still prevalent in the country, President Roosevelt allowed African Americans to receive Air Force training by establishing a training site for them in Tuskegee, Alabama. Trainees came from all over the country, and around 1,000 pilots were trained to become a group called the Tuskegee Airmen.
So, we've got another short commercial break, but we'll be right back with Lacey showing us some footage of when she went to Normandy Beach.
There are many differences between the United Nations and the League of Nations. To begin, the United Nations is a global organization that brings together various countries to confront common challenges, manage shared responsibilities, and exercise collective action. It was created in 1945 when representatives of 50 countries met in San Francisco at the United Nations Conference. Members of the League of Nations were required to respect the territorial integrity of all other nation-states and to disavow the use or threat of military force as a means of resolving international conflicts. The League sought to peacefully resolve territorial disputes by members and was in some cases highly effective. It was established on January 10, 1920.
So I know you have some footage of you visiting Normandy Beach, where one of the most famous events in World War II occurred, the D-Day invasion. Let's roll the clip.
Here we are at Normandy Beach. 11 other countries fought the Germans here using both aircrafts and ships. Unlike today, the weather here at Normandy Beach on D-Day was far from ideal. Combining the Allied and Axis powers, there were over 15,000 casualties.
Will you tell us a little bit of how planes played a role in that battle?
Planes were a huge part of the D-Day invasion. 12 nations participated in the invasion and fought against Germany, including Australia, Canada, Belgium, France, and the United States. Because of this, there were many aircrafts that belonged to each country. In fact, to avoid accidentally firing at the wrong plane, the Allies painted alternating black and white stripes on the wings of their planes.
Thank you, Lacey, for all the great details about planes in World War II.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. Round of applause for Lacey.
Hello, it's V from Briarwood Elementary School, and today we're just going to talk to some people about what the Cold War was. So our first interviewee is this man. Okay, what was the Cold War?
Okay, Cold War from 1917 1960. The Cold War, it was no fighting from the U.S. and the USSR. Now, the USSR and the U.S. had the space race, innovation battle.
What do you know about the Cold War?
It was like a diplomatic thing between like Russia after World War II and the U.S. and probably England.
Do you know why it happened?
Something about Germany, communism.
So, what do you know about the Cold War?
Well, I'm assuming it was cold. In all seriousness, this was a time of great challenge to the American, especially the American citizen.
Thank you guys for watching tonight's episode of History Today with Cassidy Hay, and thank you so much to our wonderful guests. Don't forget to stay tuned for next week, and we'll go more into depth about the Cold War.